My name is Jill Nussinow, and I go by the name The Veggie Queen. I am the author of 2 cookbooks that work with the Instant Pot. This was my first book called The New Fast Food, and I wrote this before the Instant Pot. And then this is my most recent book called Vegan Under Pressure, and both of these have great timing charts for your pressure cooker. And so I love pressure cooking. I've been pressure cooking for almost 25 years. And so I know a thing or two about it. When the Instant Pot came along, I was not enamored. I was like, why the heck am I going to use that? I can just throw my pot on the stove. It's going to work great. Well, it doesn't really work that way. I had to be convinced. Somebody said to me, you could take your dog for a walk, put your brown rice on, and walk out. Come back and you'll have cooked brown rice. And I thought, cool, that's great. So what I'm going to show you today is the pots, mostly the pots, how to use them, not a whole lot of cooking, which is very unusual for me. I've done many, many Instant Pot classes, but I want to start with the parts of the pot. Now, for those of you who haven't taken it out of the box, I highly recommend taking it out of the box. Whether it's a cute little 3-quart like this or a 6-quart, and I'll show you those a little later, take it out of the box. There's a sheet in there that will tell you how to start, but watch what I'm saying because this will matter. So I'm going to start with the lid because this is an important part. Oh, I have 2 lids here that are not the lids I want to show you. I do my cute little 3-quart lid. So here is a very important part of the pressure cooker, the Instant Pot. Doesn't matter whether it's an Instant Pot, a Zaver, a Mealthy, doesn't matter. This is the pressure knob. All right? Goes on. It's a little loose. Don't be concerned about that. There's a little thing that pops up right here. That tells you your pot's at pressure. On the bottom is a little gasket on this part that comes out. If you do what I just did, you will end up with 2 parts in your hand. This is the pressure valve that pops up. This is the gasket. So should you want to take it apart and do that, make sure you get it back in the right way. Take your gasket, the little gasket, and put it on. If you ever lose a part, make sure that you contact Instant Pot and get the part again. On this side, it looks like this, and this is a shield block. It's different on every pot, so I'll show you my other lid. Here's my other lid, and this comes off. Don't take it off unless you must, unless food got up in it. Otherwise, don't worry about that. Now, let me show you another really important part of the pot. It's called the gasket. It comes out. It tells you, watch this, every time that you use the pot. I can assure you, you don't necessarily have to because mostly there's no food up here. When you go to put it back in, there's no up, there's no down. You just put it in really tightly. And if you look at this, this has a different anti-block shield. It has a different pressure gasket thing there. And I'll show you one more just to show you, because this one's different and this one's different. But on the other side, it's the same. This is an Ultra. It has not a turning knob. It just pops up. And I'll show you what all this means. Let me make sure I got this on correctly, because when I go to use the, I want to make sure. Okay. This little knob here has sealing and venting. and I'm going to show you what that means. Now, there is a chat box. If you have a question, please type it in the chat. Also, Ellen is going to type something in there, and I'll tell you about that later. So, you start using your pot by doing what's called the water test. So, the pots, now we're going to show you who they are. And what I'm going to do, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour in 1 cup of water. I'm going to turn the lid and always make sure the lid is shut. Now, for you scaredy cats, what are you afraid of? Has anything like come out and bit me yet? I mean, nothing happens here, all right? I'm going to show you the different things on the front. Mine has pressure cook, and I'm going to set it to 1. I'm going to show you how to set the pots. I'm going to set it to 1. It is currently on low pressure. I'm going to adjust it where it says pressure level to high pressure. And then we'll see what happens. See if I put everything together correctly, which would be interesting. Okay. Now I'm going to show you the other pot. This is my most beloved 6-quart duo. And I want to show you the different buttons here. Now, what I want to tell you is I do not use most of the buttons. All right. The button I use the most is called, not that. It's hard to switch back between pots, but let me tell you, the number 1 button I start with is saute. That is 30 minutes. And you get to choose on saute, low, medium, and high. Okay. I'm going to turn it off. Okay. So the saute is low. Oh, this one adjusts differently, probably. Let me get off. This is my oldest pot, and I'm going to screw it up, and I already did, but it's all right because there's nothing terrible that's going to happen. So on this one, it's saute, manual. This is the one I use the most. This is pressure cook. On the new ones, it's called pressure cook. This is timer. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to turn, you can hear it's noisy. Yogurt. You can adjust the yogurt button by half hour each time. You can do it for 8 hours. This is not a beginner thing, but you could. So now it's off. The rice button. Rice is 12 minutes. It is only for white rice. Then we have multigrain. Multigrain is 40 minutes and has an extra part to it. I never used that. Okay. Then we have porridge. It's just a 20-minute preset. Just so you think that these things are important, they're not. It doesn't know what you have in your pot. So don't think that, oh, yeah, now I know. So I showed you yogurt. Steam. I happen to love steam, but there must be water in there for steam, and I'm going to show you what happens with steam. I'm actually going to show you that. Okay. Then what we have here is soup. Soup is a 30-minute preset. You want to change it? You can just adjust the buttons. I'll show you on my other one because it's a little different. So up, down, and here's one very cool thing, which is you can set your pot to 0. 0 is the lowest, and it just comes to pressure and turns off. So then we have meat. Most of you will not use meat, and meat is another preset. So it just, it's just what it is. It's a high pressure setting. Then we have bean chili. It doesn't know if you have beans in there. It doesn't know what you have there, all right? So don't think because you have beans, you push beans. Okay, and then this one is poultry, and that's all. Never have used poultry, meat, beans, chili, none of it. My button is manual, or on yours, it's pressure cook. Also, I have never used the slow cook setting because I just haven't. So this one says timer, this one says delay start. So what the timer is you can set it for an advance. So let me explain this to you. So let's say I want to make my oatmeal, because I do that. I make steel cut oats, and I set it for 3 minutes. It's on high pressure. If I wanted to change the pressure, I hit this button, and some of them are pressure level, and that's low, but I'm on high. So I change it to high. Then I hit timer. So let's say I want my oatmeal to be ready at 10 o'clock tonight, which is kind of ridiculous, but I set it for 10, and I'm like, oh, I want it for 10:15. So I push timer, and I'm like, okay, it'll be 10:20. And then I just wait, and it will stop flushing. And in 10 hours and 20 minutes, my pot will go on for 3 minutes. It will then go to keep warm. Okay, so that's how you do the delay pressure. They've changed the buttons, so they're all a little bit different. Okay, so saute, adjust on this one. I'll show you the other one because it's a little different, and it's the newer model. This is an old one. Let's see, what other buttons are there that I can tell you about? Are there any questions about the buttons before I leave this? Because this is coming to pressure. Oh, you should know this too. Do you see how my lid is on here in these special handle holders? If you have the Luxe model, you don't have that. But hopefully you have a Duo or higher. Now this pot is now at pressure. So I just released the pressure so I could show you that again. You can't see it. The little silver button popped up, and it's at pressure. It says on. This is what happens. It goes to on. And now we wait until it beeps. When it beeps, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour out the water, and then I'm going to measure it, because I put in 1 cup of water. So very important equipment. People always want to know what accessories to get. Get yourself a good measuring cup, like a Look Into OXO measuring cup, and a set of measuring cups like this. Metal, plastic, doesn't matter. Because this is science. So you want to make sure you get it correctly. The other thing, see, now it says 1. And so now it's counting down. So there's a way between on and when it comes on. And a lot of people get confused by this, and they're like, my pot isn't doing anything. And so my big question is there anything scary yet? I don't think so. This also is a good tool to have in your kitchen, an accessory, the collapsible steamer basket, and the pot comes usually with a rack. These are both good to have. Other than that, you might want a heat-proof bowl. This is a little enamel steel bowl. It could be a stainless steel bowl. It could be heat-proof glass, but I'm going to use this. So far, a little steam is coming out because the valve is, you see the steam? Is it scaring me? No. Okay, so now it says 0. And what it's telling me is it's done with the pressure setting that I put it on. Okay? So I am going to turn this off. And see, the aught's in a different place from here to there. What I'm going to do now is going to be the scariest part, all right? If I had a camera here, you see it, but I'm going to tell you I'm turning the knob. Now, some people put a steam diverter on here so it doesn't go into your cabinet. Oh, wow. So did I tell you this isn't really that hot unless you put your hand all the way down? And should you want the special facial, this is only water, it doesn't work that well. You can go like this and you get a special facial. So it's not that hot up here, but down below it's very hot. The top of the pot gets super hot, so don't put your hands on it. Now, I only have water in here, so it shouldn't be an issue. But if you have a full pot, you do not want to do this thing. What you want to do is called a controlled quick release. And what that is opening the valve, closing the valve, opening the valve, closing the valve. And I'll tell you about the different types of release so that you understand. So let's leave that. It takes a little bit for the pressure to come down. What you want to remember is the food in your pot is 250 degrees instead of 212, so it's very, very hot. When you go to open the pot, which I'm going to do in a second, you open it, you turn it away from you, okay? So the pressure valve is now on venting right there. Turn it back to sealing so you don't forget for the next time. I'm just going to move that over there. Oh, it doesn't like that one. I move it over here. And what I have now is hot. So let me grab my pot holder here. So the pot is hot. And now I'm going to show you. You can switch back to me. What I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you how much water was lost in there.
Couldn't get the audio.
Excuse me. Okay. Why were they muted? Okay. Anyway, here's what you have. The same amount of water came out that went in. Got it? This is what the water test is for. They will tell you to put in 3 cups of water. I don't even know what they tell you. Don't listen. This is what you have. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the rack. Oh, not that rack. I'm going to use that rack in the other pot because that's my big rack. Okay. So when you steam, which I'm going to do, pot fluid. You're going to put in your wrap, or I can put my food in this bowl, and this is called pot and pot cooking. So what I want to tell you is there's a difference between steaming and pot cooking. If you do pot and pot, it takes longer for the food in here to come to heat, pressure, and it will take longer to cook. So whatever you're cooking in there is going to take longer. So I'm actually going to take my rack out. Yeah, I think I'm going to do this the other way. All right. I'm going to use the steamer. I just put the 1 cup of water in. I have my steamer basket. And what I have, because it's hard for me to do this without really cooking, is I have some carrots that came from my imperfect box. And let me tell you, they were pretty imperfect, but they're pretty. And they're going into my pot. Remember, I have to make sure this is on sealing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do steam. Here's steam. And I don't want to steam my carrots for 5 minutes. I'm going to do my carrots for 3 minutes. And so that's that in this pot. Now, someone asked me a question earlier. If I am making beans and I put 2 cups in instead of 1 cup, do I increase the liquid? And a very, very important thing about pressure cooking is that you always need liquid to cook. Okay, so very, very important. So I'm going to leave that for now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back here to my oldie but goodie, and I am going to cook a little kale. And what I have in here is, it's going to be a little noisy for a bit, a lot of beeping and so on. What I have in here is I have some onion and garlic and red pepper, and I turn my pot on saute, and I'm going to saute those, dry saute them. And once that's done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cook some kale. So I have a bunch of fresh kale, I'd say 3-4 cups, and I'm going to put that in with liquid. The liquid I'm going to add is my broth. And remember, I told you a really important tool when you're pressure cooking is your measuring cup. So I'm going to put in 1/4 cup of liquid when that's ready. And I want that to just cook a little bit. So this is a perfect time while we're waiting for this to come up to pressure, because steam is a pressure setting. While we're waiting for this to come up, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I'm sure you must have questions.
Somebody wanted to know if brown rice takes longer.
Okay, so the rice setting is only for white rice. Brown rice takes 22 minutes at pressure with a natural pressure release. I have a blog post on my blog, which is the veggiequeen.com. And what it has on it is perfect brown rice. And what I've discovered is different people like different rice. So for me, it's 22 minutes, 1.5 cups of liquid with a natural pressure release. So let me tell you a little bit about a natural pressure release. But meanwhile, I'm going to stir what's in the pot, the onions, the garlic, the red pepper. Now, if you're feeling a little crazy, you could add hot pepper to this, but what you need to know about the Instant Pot or any pressure cooker is when you add hot pepper, it gets hotter in the pressure cooker. So be careful. Orzo is a pasta, and yes, I will talk a little bit about pasta, so you could remind me to do that. Now, this is starting to stick a little because it's hot in there, and so I'm going to add a little of the broth that I was going to add. And let me tell you about a beginner mistake. A beginner mistake is adding too much liquid, thinking that it's going to evaporate. I can assure you it will not. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn the pot off of saute. So after you saute, always make sure that nothing is stuck, because the newer pots especially have a burn message. So I'm going to add the liquid. I put in 1/4 cup, and I'm going to add my kale, which I have so nicely torn up. All right. So they say that you need at least 1 cup of liquid to cook. It is a lie, a total lie. Okay, manual 3 minutes. That's just what I want. Now, I could do this on low pressure. I could adjust the pressure to low, but I'm going to do it on high. Now, let me talk about a natural pressure release. A natural pressure release is when the pot goes off, it starts coming up, and you just wait. The usual waiting time is somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes. And the thing about that is it depends how much is in the pot, how full it is, how much liquid it is. That's what's going to determine how long the pressure release takes. Some recipes, like the one I have for white rice, is 3 minutes cooking and a 7-minute release. And when it counts up to 7, you just release it. Okay. But that's for 1 cup of rice. So anyway, it really depends on what's happening there. So you can go back to me. Well, let's wait for the pot to get to its thing, and then we'll go from there. This is just about ready to come to pressure. Okay, just came to pressure. The button is up. All right, so go. So this one is going to go. So neither one of these are doing a natural pressure release. A natural pressure release means that you are just going to wait, and you use a natural pressure release for beans and grains. And while I'm talking about that, let me talk about how full you can fill the pot. I don't have another insert here with me, but there's a max line. The max line is usually not for pressure cooking. You fill the pot half full with food that expands, 2/3 full with food that doesn't. So, like if you're cooking a lot of vegetables, you can do 2/3 full. If you're cooking whole things like winter squash, sweet potatoes, you can fill it as full as you can fill it. Okay. But don't want to overfill your pot. It needs room to come to pressure. So what happens in the pot is important for you to know, even if it isn't. So now if you could just go back to the pot for a second. Can you switch back to pot? Okay. So this says 3 minutes now. So now it's going to count. And when it's done, it will beep. And I will release the pressure by myself. Now, I have another pot, which is a Mealthy 2.0. And the Mealthy has a pressure release. You can set the type of release, which I love because it will just release if it's on, if you put it on quick release, it just does it itself. The only thing is, if you have, and I'm going to want to talk about this, the keep warm on. If you have your keep warm on and you do the quick release, what will happen is if you do the quick release and it's on keep warm, it will not, it will stop being hot. But let's say I went out one time and I had the keep warm on and I had rice in the pot. When I got home, it was all stuck to the pot. So you really want to pay attention to that. Now this pot is at pressure, but I didn't hear anything happening. And now it's at 3.2 because that's how long I'm cooking the kale. So these are both going. Nothing scary is happening here. So I told you how full to fill the pot, half full for things that expand, beans and grains, 2/3 full for things that don't. Okay? Other questions?
People said they got the
burn message. Let's talk about this burn message. All right. These pots actually don't have a burn message. So they made the new pots so kind of finicky, sensitive is what I'll call them. So sensitive that they have a burn message. If you get a burn message, sometimes it's because you sauteed something, there's little specks stuck on there and you can't see it. So if that happens, clean it really well, go back to the water test. Some people find they get a burn message almost all the time. If this is the case, I would just contact Instant Pot because the pot shouldn't be so sensitive that you can't cook in it. That's kind of an issue. So you want to pay attention to when it says you have the burn message. Usually it's from something that was in the pot that got stuck on the pot. That's the main thing. There are other reasons for burn message, but that's the main one. So, all right. So now, this is when I go set the table. I go, make something else. I do a lot of batch cooking in my Instant Pot. And Ellen, did you get to post the link? Okay. So, here we go. All right. Who remembers what's in the pot? Okay. Ready? Here we go. This is where I get the carrot facial. Yeah, not that good. I'm not doing that one. So you can do the relief with either hand, just so you know. But I recommend you do it with the hand closest to you on this side. But for the interest of Zoom, I will do it this way. So what you need to know is until the pot lets me, I cannot open it. And it will not open until the pressure valve drops. So often I can hear that from somewhere else, but most people can't. So I'm just waiting. Don't ever take the pressure valve off while it's under pressure. That's when things could get really scary. Okay, here we go. All right. So I'm opening the pot. I am checking my carrots, which appear to be pretty perfectly done. I'm going to take them out and I'm going to let you see. And then I'm going to quick release my kale. It didn't really handle very well for the dish, but that's okay. Okay. Here are my carrots. My carrots that are perfectly cooked. Maybe they could have used some a minute less, but it's okay. And here we go. Kale. I can just turn the knob and leave it. And you might see it counted up. So it's been 1 minute since that happened. And normally what I do is I turn it off, but you could see how it's counting up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it, turn the lid away from me. Okay. And grab my tongs because I'm not crazy enough to put my hand in there. And here is my kale, which I could have maybe cooked for 2 minutes or 1 minute. It really depends how you like your kale. But something I want to show you, which will tell you why 1 cup is a stupid amount to put in your pot. And you might have seen I put in a 1/4 cup of liquid. Now, usually the outside of the lid is not, of the bowl is not so hot, and this is not. So what I'm going to do, even though there's some pieces in there, is I'm going to pour the liquid into here. And I would say I have about a tablespoon of liquid left. So I didn't even necessarily need a whole 1/4 cup of liquid to cook the kale. So this is where things get tricky for beginners. And this is why I recommend a good cookbook, because it will tell you what you need to know. So you can see that there's liquid here, and my kale is done. Question?
What is the difference between steam and pressure, and when do you decide which to use?
Well, for vegetables. So good question. What is the difference between steam and pressure, and how do you decide which to use? Are you steaming your vegetables or are you cooking your vegetables? So I actually cook these. So because I cooked them, they went into the pot, and you thought I was just cooking to show you, but I actually made my lunch. Anyway, what the story is, steams if you want to steam, but cooking you're going to do right in the pot. And I do both. I have to tell you, I really prefer cooking in the pot than steaming in the pot. Although when you're doing potatoes, winter squash, sweet potatoes, I do those. on the rack in the pot on the steam setting. Steam just goes faster and hotter, but you cannot put food directly in the pot and use steam. I mean, you can, but I don't recommend it. And I forgot to turn this one off, so it's counted up. It's 5 minutes. No wonder it's still hot in there. And my kale has been steaming on top. So that pretty much is a beginning how to use your Instant Pot. I don't know that I've left anything out, but I am certainly open to take a few questions if you have them. Ellen put into the chat box if you would like to donate for this class, please use the link that's there. If you don't want to, there's no pressure here. Ha ha. But I hope that you have learned what you came for. Also, the website is thevegiequeen.com, and it's in there. Oh, spilled broth. And then here are my 2 cookbooks.
Manual 12 minutes.
So this is a good question. I use manual 12 minutes for potatoes. Should I use steam? You can use either. That works fine. So I usually use steam, but you can use manual. It's not a big deal. Other questions?
How do you get the steamer rack out without getting burned?
How do you get the steamer rack without getting burned? I do not find that the steamer rack is hot. Okay, this has a little handle. So I just lift that out. It's not hot. Okay, so obviously you think I'm completely insane and I'm putting my hand in a pot that's 250 degrees, and I don't have asbestos hands. I just have regular hands. So.
Another message says I cook brown and white rice on 22 minutes. Is that wrong?
If you like your white rice, so brown and white rice at 22 minutes, there's no need to cook white rice at 22 minutes. White rice can be done in 3 minutes. Unless you like really, really, really soft white rice, which you might like. Can you switch back to me?
How much water do you put in the pot to cook a whole baked potato?
Okay, so when I cook potatoes, I put in 1 cup of water and the rack. And then I put the potatoes in. I don't usually do 1 at a time. I usually do 3 or 4. And I do it 10 to 12 minutes, depending upon the size of the potato, depending on the age of the potato. And potatoes don't tell their age. So you don't know. So start with 10 or 12 minutes, do a natural pressure release. When it's time to see if your potato is done, just stick your knife in there. If your knife goes through well, it's done. Sweet potatoes, I have found, take 12 to 14 minutes. I just saw the largest sweet potatoes I've ever seen. I swear they were like the size of my head. So those would probably take 20 minutes or more. So it really depends. And people have made all these crazy charts for like your rice. Like all rice should be cooked 1 to 1. Not true. Even the rice charts, people are like, oh yeah, this is a great rice chart. I've cooked every type of rice, but potatoes, they're like, if it's this size, cook it this long. If this potato, this big, was just harvested, I can assure you it's going to turn to mush in the time of a potato harvested last year that's this size. So there's a lot of variables here. I encourage you to undercook rather than overcook, because overcooked food is not that good. Undercooked, you can put it back on. I didn't show you that, but I could right now show you what happens. So let's say I open this up and my carrots were not cooked. I should have done that right away. So if my carrots weren't cooked, what I can do is I go back here and I can turn it back on for 1 more minute. Because the water in here is so hot, what will happen is the pressure will come up right away. So I just cook it for 1 more minute. I can assure you, let's see. Oh no, these carrots are perfect for Ellen. So she she'll love them. They're a little too cooked for me, but anyway, you can always put it back on. Once they're too done, you don't have so many choices. You're making burgers, you're making soup. So less cooked is better than more. And I want to talk just for a moment about beans. Beans are very finicky in terms of like you don't know how old they are. You don't know. Okay. So for dry beans, I recommend 2 cups of water for every 1 cup of beans. Remember these tools? These are the tools. You measure. You don't just say, people are like, oh, I put in 1 inch above. No. So it's not so much for dry beans, but when you do soaked beans, and soaking is 8 to 12 hours overnight or from morning till night, drain them. For every dry cup of beans that you have soaked, put in 1/2 to 3/4 cup of water or broth. 1/2 to 3/4 cup. Your beans are already hydrated. People are like, well, I cover them by an inch. They don't need that. They are already rehydrated. They don't cook by boiling. They're cooking by pressure and steam. So don't think you have to cover your beans. Even the 2 cups to 1 cup for the dry, that's going to work fine. But for the soap, no need to put extra water unless you have a use for that water. And I don't use it. Other questions? I'll take a couple more questions and then I'm going to wrap it up. Somebody asked about oat groats. It depends. So different people cook them different ways. Somebody online has a whole thing with them for you cook it for 5 minutes and let it sit for 3 hours. I can assure you, I'm not letting anything sit for 3 hours unless I've left the house. So the idea of pressure cooking is it's fast and easy. If you want to know about oat groats, how about I just look them up? I think they take about 20 minutes. And I like to soak mine. You don't have to. I have charts for cooking whole grains. Oats, groats. Here we go. Whole. 2 cups of water, 20 to 22 minutes with a natural release. Now, here's what I want to tell you about that. If you want to put your oats in at night and do the delay start, they'll be perfect the next morning. And you don't have to worry about 3 hours of waiting because I'm not waiting 3 hours for my food. And I'll take one more question. Great question. I will end on that because it's a great question. Can you can half pints in there? According to the USDA, you cannot can anything in your pressure because they do not maintain steady pressure and they are also not at 15 pounds a square inch, which I didn't talk about, which is the science of it. So this is at pressure now. I don't need to show you the pot. It just into pressure again, but let's pretend my carrots weren't cooked enough. I could just bring it back to pressure. I can quick release the pressure and then I can do whatever I need to do if I need more cooking. But these pots, even the Max, which I have, they have not approved for canning. So do not pressure can in your pressure cooker. Get yourself a pressure canner for that. So I thank you for being here and really, truly, this was a test drive and I think that we've all lived. Eileen was helping, Ellen was helping. I'd like to thank them. And Eileen has a business where she can help you with this stuff if you choose to Zoom, which is quite a challenge. But this part's not a challenge. I've done hundreds of Instant Pot classes, but I have never done a Zoom one like this. So thank you again, and I hope to see you online. If you signed up for the class, you will be signed up for my newsletter, which comes out once a month. Check out my website, check out my books, and thank you again. I hope you had fun, and I hope for those of you who had the thing in the box, take it out, do the water test, send me a message and say, I did the water test, because you're going to be so excited, and make something easy like potatoes or sweet potatoes, and you will never look back. So thank you very much.